Can you see my slides?
We can, yes. Please go ahead.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Magid. And hi, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here. So I'm a professor at Concordia University, but I've been an affiliate researcher with NASAJEP here. We are working with Magid and the entire team there on the various aspects of systems engineering. So today, really, my presentation is on giving you a kind of discussing the results of a survey we have conducted of the practitioner experiences and challenges. So the authors of the study, this Magid himself has been leading this work in collaboration with myself from Concordia University and my two colleagues, I believe they are online, Bentley Oaks and Mohamed Hamdaka from Polytechnic Montreal, another Montreal university. So let me just talk a little bit about the goal of the study. So as you know, MBSE is extremely useful, been used for a while now to enhance collaboration and system understanding by focusing on models. Models are the main artifact that we use for representing the various, for example, artifacts of system engineering and sharing them among the various stakeholders. There are various key benefits that have been shown in practice, but also in the various studies, including improving traceability between the various abstraction of system engineering models, reducing error reduction by doing simulation, early issue detection efficiency, and so on. And this is all done through modeling and model-driven engineering. Well, the interesting part is that despite the promise of MBSE, but we don't know a lot about what's happening, what's going on in large organizations. So there's a limited real-world data on how MBSE is being used, standardized across various industries. Having said that, there are studies that discuss those aspects, but not that many. And this is why we wanted to do a survey and talk to various practitioners and try, for example, to analyze their work, their practices, their tools, the challenges, and so on. And in this particular study, we have reached out to many people, but we have received 76 responses, which is really not bad and gives you a very good idea of what's happening more or less in the industry. Having 76 responses usually is a very good number with this type of study. So before I get into the discussion of what has been covered, what are the main takeaways, I just want to make sure that I go through the survey process to emphasize the fact that I followed the scientific approach to conduct this survey. We started by a literature review. So the idea is we wanted to know what has been going on out there in terms of surveys and so on. And by reviewing the literature, we came up with a list of questions that we want to ask our participants. A list of questions we found relevant. We saw that it was important for us to ask them. We did disseminate a survey through various channels, reaching out to people from various companies, putting those things on social media and so on. So as I said, 76 people have completed the survey, and we started the analysis. Having said that, usually in most of the studies, you stop at the analysis part and you disseminate the result. But for this particular one, we did take advantage of the first version of the ontoNexus workshop, which took place last January 2024. And we gave those results to the participants at that time. I think some of you might have contributed to that, and we thank you for that. And we had over 120 people attending. And we asked them, what do you think about the results of the survey, to help us analyze them and to help us come up with the best recommendations. So we combined like questionnaires with feedbacks from practitioners that attended the workshop, and this, which makes this survey pretty much robust in a certain way. And we analyzed the results, we did a write-up, and we even have a paper in the review that summarizes all those results. I'm going to start with the type of questions we asked. You can still hear me, right? Right, Maggie? Everything's okay?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, you can hear me well? Okay, perfect. Just make sure. So I want to just talk about how the survey was organized. We had 3 categories of questions, and by the way, all the questions are available, and we can share them with the entire community. So the first question, obviously, we asked to collect data about the participants' background, things like what's their home institution, the level of experience with MBSE, what kind of industries they are involved in, their experiences with MBSE tools, and so on. The second and third category really got into the topic. The second category was about the methods and the tools they use. What's the level of MBSE practice? What kind of methods they are following in their organization? The scope of the project of MBSE. What kind of tools they use to customize MBSE tools, domain integration, so on. Really, we got into the details of how this is being used in terms of methodologies, in terms of tools. The last type of question we went even further to talk about specific aspects of MBSE, which we have realized are problematic in most companies. Again, based on the literature, based on the fact we talk to many people and so on, which has to do with model management and evolution. Right? I want to know how stakeholders get visibility over the various artifacts that have been generated. MBSE change processes in companies, model evolution and co-evolution, change impact, and so on. And what kind of collaboration done across organizations, not only within the same organization, and so on. So I think in total we had 25, 26. I don't remember questions again that are available, and we collected all this data and we start analyzing it. So I'm just going to get right into the results and we'll reveal some of the takeaways at the end. Let's talk about the background of the participants. The important thing is we want to make sure that we are representative of the practitioners out there. So pure practitioners survey. So we do see here we asked them about the level of experience. So 7% didn't have a lot of experience in MBSE. But if you look at the people who have more than 5 years and people who have between 2 and 5, the majority of our responses and participants, meaning that the survey is here for people who are, the results come from people who have moderate to expert level of usage of MBSE. We did have some novices as well, represent 20% who have less than 2 years of experience using model-based systems engineering. Not only that the survey covers different populations of practitioners, but also geographically they vary from various places. We had around 58% of people came from North America, Europe around 23%, and Asia, mainly Japan and Asia Pacific and so on. We had around, and other countries, we had around 18%. We did cover various roles of MBSE practitioners, going from researchers, not necessarily in academia. Researchers could be even in companies, like I said, NASA JPL, they have a lot of researchers as well, and many other organizations. So it's not really necessarily people who are purely in academia. We did have around 28% systems engineers, methodologists, managers, tool experts, and so on. People can choose more than one role, by the way. And again, there's a paper that summarizes very, very well everything, and it's well written with a very lot of details. The third bullet here is important. Why is that? Because we really, got lucky in somehow. We really want to have participants for whom MBSE is important as well. And we target kind of heavy industries like aerospace, defense, automotive, aviation, where really they have complex systems and they have to use systems engineering to model them and analyze them. But we did have people from academia, so universities, researchers, professors, and who also answered the responses, which is very good. So we have a very, very nice variety here. Now, MBSE methodology of level of practice. Well, if you look at the level of practice here, some of the results, we're asking them, for example, what's your level of practice with MBSE? For example, from have you started adopting MBSE all the way to do you use exclusively MBSE? And if you can look at this chart, for example, the majority have started adopting MBSE on a small scale, around 38.5%. Clearly, MBSE was done in 2024, by the way. Clearly, as mentioned earlier, clearly MBSE is not as adopted as one might think. But people are working towards adoption. For example, around 36.8% said that they have an established MBSE practice for years. There was something which wasn't applicable. But the people who exclusively use MBSE in their practice, they represent around 5.2%, which are only 3 participants. Exclusively, meaning that people still combine models with other, perhaps document-based systems engineering in their current practice. We did ask them also about the methodology. Do they follow a specific methodology, like, for example, OSCM and Magic Grade and so on? We did find like a majority don't have a specific methodology they follow. For example, 29.7%, they don't necessarily follow any specific methodology. But many of them, they use a combination of customized methodology and hybrid methodology. For example, around 19.4% and 10.6%, where they try to take something out there and adopt it to their own work. And we did have we found relatively like a small number of people use various, for example, methodologies out there, like, for example, something that's UML-based, Arcadia-based, ontoUML, Smalltalk, and things like that. And by the way, in this survey, also we define what we mean by methodologies, so people have context when they answer these questions very, very well. Another thing that was very good that we tried to capture, and again was written in that paper was mentioned earlier, is that some of the opinions, and obviously I don't have time to put them in the slides, so I did like put some of the key ones. For example, so these are specific comments from some of the respondents. Some of them said all MBSE methodologies need to be tailored to the needs of the project. One of the participants, I think it's an expert participant, were mentioning that whatever is out there needs to be somehow customized. Some other raised the concern of training. We said we don't have training and established best practice in organization to adopt specific methodology. One thing for sure is that most of the participants, one way or another, they said that they use something, but they try to customize or combine something that's out there to meet the specific needs. This, for example, suggests a lack of standardized approach to how MBSE is being used, and that's something we can discuss at the end. And this came up many, many times in that survey, in fact. Some of the methodologies that were most popular to emerge through the survey was Magic Grade, OSCM, and hybrid approach were common themes in the responses we have received. The next thing we asked them the scope. We wanted to know, they are using model-based systems engineering, but at what level? Is it for a specific project, specific product, a program maybe that maybe combines many products or projects, or is it within the organization? Many participants, I think the majority of them, they mentioned that the MBSE has been used at the project and the product level. And the argument they have been giving is that because they want MBSE to address very specific domains, and that's why this has to do, is reflected in the project they do and the product. We did have people who work at the program level. Perhaps there's an ambiguity here what they mean by product, but clearly one thing that we can understand from this is that only 24% talk about organization-wide MBSE. It means companies don't have like an approach at the organizational level. So it's done at various projects, which means that you can use different methodologies and so on. Some of the comments from people, for example, those are express comments as well, from people who use like organization-wide MBSE approaches. An interesting thing, people were saying that development organization-wide MBSE methodology was possible in this particular context because of guidance and standards. So the participant at this point was mentioning like guidance within the organization, developing some standards that will help them, for example, deploy MBSE at the organization level. One of the participants, for example, said that the aim of having organization level methodology is to facilitate the use of digital engineering platforms across programs and projects, and that's what encouraged them to put in place an organization-based methodology for MBSE. But through the results we have received, clearly there is a lack of an organization level MBSE. And I think there's a question from Nicholas. I take the question right now, or go ahead. The question, Nicholas.
Yes, that last comment there, the aim of having an organization level methodology is to facilitate reuse, blah, blah, blah. That comment could be made not just about MBSE, but about pretty much anything else. So do you have any insight into whether that comment was made specifically about MBSE or about something else?
Yes, for this comments were really about MBSE because we had text, an edit text where people can write down the comments based on the question. So this comment was really about MBSE for this particular case. But I agree with you, Nicholas, that anything, for example, that you deploy at the organization level, you really, because you want to reuse like various platforms across various projects and so on. So this applies also to MBSE as well, yeah. But the comments were about MBSE. I hope I answered the question.
Right. I mean, I guess it's always difficult to tease out really the impact of MBSE as opposed to the impact of something else. Like, just because we have an organization level methodology that's actually a facilitator, that may be more important than MBSE or the other way around. It's hard to say.
I think there was no lot of context around the answer, but I would tend to believe that's about MBSE because the question was asked for this particular answer was really at what level, what's the scope of MBSE methodology you use in your organization, something like that. So the answer really had to do with MBSE in particular, not anything else. Yeah, I would suspect. Yeah. So in terms of tools, we asked them, for example. I don't have all the questions, by the way, in this presentation, just for the sake of time. I just took the most important ones. In terms of tool, it was a question about do you find it easy to customize your MBSE tools for your method? So as you can see here, majority said no. It's as simple as this. In fact, the people who said somewhat, the tendency is like it's a no as well. It's only yes, right around 33%. And many reasons were mentioned in the survey. Lack of semantics, time consuming, they said to customize. Vendor lock solutions, interoperability between tools was an issue. The cost was mentioned as a problem, which really limited the use of MBSE. So when I look at another question, do you integrate different domains and disciplines in your MBSE map? That's another good one. So if you look at that, many people were talking about using ontologies as a way to do this integration. They were mentioning that ontologies were very important to integrate through multiple domains and disciplines. They were mentioning, for example, that 33% provided an answer to that only. And they were mentioning that ontologies were interesting because they were used as a logical foundation, but aligning with the higher order ontologies that are the higher order logic in this case. They were talking about tools mentioned, various tools like Katia, Magic, OpenMBAE, and so on. And there were also some people who proposed, like, as you can see in the chart, 90% were talking about tool-based, another 90% about process-based, and there were also people discussing like the use of data as a way to try to integrate multiple domains. And this is a comment of one of the participants saying that they had a central data store with well-defined semantic and so on. Documents were also used for integration, but only 3%. Obviously, as you can see in this question, only 33% responded. And the reason why, because in fact, it's one of the most difficult questions we found when we analyzed the data. It just that people having hard time to understand how to integrate different domains, which technology you can use. And I guess that's why we didn't have a lot of answers, but people who answered really tend to believe that ontologies having a semantic foundation will help with integration of various artifacts of MBSE. Now,
Wahab, we lost audio. Wahab, are you there? You're muted, or we cannot hear you.
another question. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very okay from my side. Can you hear me, Megan?
We can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. No, I didn't touch anything, but yeah, okay. So we're gonna continue.
So I have just a time check, 4 minutes, okay?
Yeah, okay, 4 minutes. So stakeholder visibility is another one. They were talking about common practice model-based reviews, model navigation via web pages, and so on. People talked about also using continuous integration, continuous development. So to do the stakeholder visibility, also there's a question of using web-based and viewpoint-specific reporting for this. Maybe I'm going to go to the, since I have 4 minutes, I just want to go, in fact, it should be okay in terms of time. We did ask also the question, do you have a rigorous change process for your MBSE model? This is the important one, all right? Because they, as Maggie was mentioning about agility and so on. So only 14% said that we do. Not the limitation of tooling. They said that tooling do not allow them. And that's exactly what we have noticed in many of the answers. The people who use MBSEs do lack the agile process we find in traditional software engineering, where people use GitHub, use CI/CD, and so on. The MBSE does appear that those practices haven't been adopted as they should. And we have noticed that not only for this question, but across the other questions, that wasn't a challenge. One expert, that's why I put it on this slide, said that the problem is not really the tools, the problem is the people who do not usually like, they're not trained to this kind of things. And I don't know here, we'll talk a bit about the technologies, maybe the methodology, it was not specific, but I said that it's not only the tool, but also we have to have people trained to use this kind of technologies, like we use in traditional software engineering and MBSE. Now, another question was, do you organize your model into separate by interrelated modules and so on? This is about splitting the models into models. A lot of people said we don't have any strategy to do so. To do that, 26.5% they have zero strategy, but there are some that do. But a highly advanced modelization was only something that 12.8% of participants have mentioned. But everybody else use somehow an ad hoc method, or they don't have a strategy as well. There were other challenges that were mentioned. For example, training is a challenge, change management, resistance to change is a challenge. There are technical challenges. And another important point I just want to share with you here as well, I thought was very good. Many people talked about cost, and they talk about return on investments. There has been also something that came repetitively in the answers. People don't want to understand what's the benefit, why are we doing this, and how can we convince the practitioner and decision makers that is useful. This came out many, many times, as you can see. I just want to finish up. I have only 1 or 2 slides, Mike, so I should be done soon. We studied the answers from different angles, and we came up with a set of discussion items, and we wrapped them up into 3 categories. One of them, enterprise-wide MBSE adoption standardization. Clearly, there is a lack of a vision from an organization point of view of putting MBSE strategy. And we made some recommendations. One of the recommendations is to align MBSE with strategic business goals. It means the organization, they have to see how MBSE fit their business goals and objectives. And by doing that, they should put a governance structure around it. Governance that includes, for example, capabilities in terms of people, training of people, processes in place, but also KPIs to track performance, to track adoption. So they have to look at MBSE as a way to increase value. And from that perspective, it needs to be done at the organizational level. And this will also guarantee the buy-in from high-level decision makers and so on. And this will also lead towards the development of tool ecosystems and not individual silo tools that are used here and there, and they have so many that create other issues. Another key point we have been discussing as well is cross-domain integration. We found like it's one of the major concerns for many people. And the reason why, because there's a lack of semantics in various languages around them. Yes, XML v2 can perhaps address this, and needs to be enhanced eventually, while acknowledging its limitation as well. But we need to find something that is more formal. And we're proposing an ontological aware tools for semantics to be able to do this cross-domain integration. And systems engineering is all about cross-domain, right? Purpose-driven incremental integration strategies are also needed for that one. The last point that we found very useful to discuss and share as well is model management, evolution, and stakeholders visibility. And this has to do with the entire aspect of agile processes, integrating tools with stakeholder-specific views and live reporting, infrastructure for collaborative processes, rigorous modelization and impact analysis frameworks, and so on, that would allow people, for example, to share models, manage models, evolve models, co-evolve models, and while allowing visibility of various stakeholders over the artifacts that are being developed. This is my last. I just want to acknowledge and thank, on behalf of the authors, we would like to thank all the participants of the survey, but also thanks all the ontoNexus 2024 workshop participants who have also helped us by generously sharing their time, insights, and experiences. You can contact any of us. We have the email address if you have any questions. As I said, there's a paper has been submitted to Models, which is the major conference in model-driven engineering. We haven't received an answer yet. Hopefully, if it's accepted, we're going to present it in Michigan, and we can also share it with the community. There are a lot of details there. I would like to thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate.
Thank you so much, Wahab. I think your presentation is a great segue to the next